Good morning. The festival of Sukkot, the Torah tells us that we must sit in Sukkot, Laman Teidu Dorotechem, so that all future generations will know, Ki b'Sukkot hoshavti et b'nei Israel, b'otzei etam eretz Mitzrayim, that I emplaced the Jewish people in Sukkot when I took them out of the land of Egypt. And one of the distinctions here between this mitzvah and other mitzvot connected to the Exodus is that most of the time it says Laman Tizkaru, in order that you will remember. Whereas when it comes to Sukkot it says Laman Teidu'u, in order that you will know. What's the difference between knowing and remembering? Well, remembering is something that you knew already, that you are being reminded of. Knowing, firstly, is a deeper kind of knowledge than remembering. But secondly, it could be that it's something that you didn't know before. And I was thinking that this actually fits in very well, because in no place in the Torah that I can find does it say, and the Jewish people lived in Sukkot. Had it said that they crossed the Red Sea, and then they went and they lived in Sukkot. Had it said even the idea of the clouds of glory, which I'll come back to in a second, is not explicit anywhere in the text that there were clouds of glory that sheltered the Jewish people. So Sukkot, we are learning this lesson. We are getting to know that Hashem took care of us in the desert in these Sukkot. What Sukkot were they? Well, as I mentioned, in the absence of a direct textual information, we have an argument in the Gemara between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Eliezer says that the Sukkot the Torah is speaking about are huts, Sukkot. We lived in the kind of huts that people live in when they're traveling in the desert, and Hashem took care of us in that way, that we were able to live in these huts. The Rabbi Akiva says, no, it is referring to the clouds of glory. As I mentioned, although it's not explicit in the text, we know there was a cloud that went in front of the Jewish people, and there was a cloud that rested over the Mishkan, over the tabernacle, but the idea of the clouds surrounding and encircling the Jewish people, and that our Sukkah represents that. And if you take a look at that verse that I quoted on Chumash in Vayikra, book of Leviticus, chapter 23, what you'll see is that the Rashbam and the Ramban both explain the idea of Sukkot in a sense fundamentally opposite ways, but I think there's a common thread that binds it all together. The Rashbam prefers the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer. He says it's more straightforward to say that we were speaking about actual Sukkot, actual huts. And he says since we're speaking about these huts, so what it means is that when you have the harvest festival and you feel so fantastic and great and proud of everything you've accomplished, you should remember the time that you had nothing. In other words, it's a reminder of our vulnerability, of the fact that we were coming from nothing, that we were in the desert with only literally the shirts on our backs and the huts in which we lived, with no land, with no settlement. And now that we are seeing this wonderful produce in the land of Israel, he says we should always remember where we came from. The Ramban takes the opposite tack. He says Rabbi Akiva's opinion makes more sense. And Rabbi Akiva, speaking about the clouds of glory, is the miraculous way in which Hashem always took care of us. Now, in a sense, these are diametrically opposite. Rabbi Eliezer speaking about the fact that life is so temporal, the fact that we have very little that's guaranteed in life, that actually everything is ephemeral, and we could just be living in huts in the desert, and don't think so much of your great houses. And the Ramban is saying that Hashem is always taking care of us, that Hashem is always protecting us. But I think when you look a little deeper, they really are actually the same message, two sides of this message. The message really is, do not place your trust in the physical world, place your trust in Hashem. If you want to think that it's about having the big house and the nice car and the financial security, remember how where we all came from. We all came from huts. But you know what? That's not where you should put your trust. You should put your trust in Hashem, who even in that desert could surround us with those clouds of glory. So I think the message is that Hashem is the bedrock of our lives and the ultimate source of all of our security. And everything else that we try to build is a flimsy hut. What really lasts is the Sukkah. And somehow, within both of those messages of the Sukkah being the huts in the desert, of the Sukkah being the clouds of glory, is the same message. Hashem is always with us, Hashem is taking care of us, and it is in Hashem that we find true security. Chag Sameach.